Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Intuitive Creators Podcast, a space where we speak the truth, reclaim our power, and strip away all the rules that were never meant for us in the first place. I'm your host, Mandee, and today, we're going to talk about something that might ruffle a few feathers, or maybe set your inner rebel free. The title says it all. Swearing is self-expression. Yep, you heard me. We're diving into the art, the psychology, and the spiritual permission behind dropping a good old F-bomb when you feel like it. Because let's be real, words are powerful. Words shape energy. And when you try to cut out certain words because someone told you they're dirty or low vibe, you're actually cutting off pieces of yourself. And if there's one thing we don't do around here, it's dim our light to fit in. So why this conversation matters? Let's start right here. Now, you might be wondering, why even bother with this conversation? Because in so many spiritual, wellness, and even professional spaces, there's this unspoken rule. If you swear, you're not enlightened enough. You're too harsh, too crude, or too low vibe. But language is culture. Language is identity. Language is emotion. When you censor yourself completely, you cut off your own flow of authenticity. It's like tying your tongue in a knot just to appear more pure. This episode is not about telling everyone to swear more. It's not about making F-bombs your spiritual practice. It's about choice. It's about owning your voice. And I'll be real, as a yoga teacher and intuitive guide, I used to feel like I shouldn't swear. Like if I let one curse word slip, I'd lose credibility, or someone would think I wasn't spiritual enough. So I censored myself. I softened everything, and honestly, it felt fake. It wasn't me. And if I'm being completely honest, I like to swear. I enjoy swearing. And not because the words are fun to say, but because it is expression for myself. I emphasize what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking through the words that I use. I realized that every time I swallowed my words to sound more acceptable, I was reinforcing the lie that my authentic self was too much, that my voice had to be edited for approval, and that my loves is not freedom. That's self-policing. The science of swearing. Let's shift gears for a moment into science. Did you know that swearing actually activates the emotional centers of the brain? Specifically, the amygdala? When we let those words out, they help us release built-up tension. Studies even show that swearing increases pain tolerance, which is really hilarious to read about. People who put their hand in ice-cold water could hold it there longer if they let out a curse word than if they had said something neutral. Swearing literally helps your nervous system process stress. It can also provide emotional catharsis, like a pressure valve releasing stem. But here's the thing. There's a difference between unconscious swearing, where every other word is filler, and intentional swearing, where the word actually amplifies the emotion you're trying to express. Think about it. Saying I'm proud of you is sweet, but saying I'm so fucking proud of you hits on a whole different level of intensity. That single word carries weight, emphasis, and passion. That polite language, sometimes just doesn't capture. It doesn't always do it. So if you've ever met me in person, or if you know me in real life, then you know I'm a passionate person. I'm a fiery person, really. And when I get fired up, you can hear it in my voice. I raise the volume of my voice, the tone changes, and I speak with much more emphasis. That doesn't always mean I'm swearing every 2 words, right? But it does mean that I am very emotional and thought-provoking when I do speak. And I'm just speaking for myself. That has nothing to do with anybody else. Maybe you also feel this way, that this is how you actually are, but you don't necessarily always express that in front of others or just in general. The spiritual side of swearing. Let's get right into this, because this is my favorite part of this podcast episode. Let's bring it back to the spiritual lens. In many ancient cultures, taboo words were used in ritual settings to break societal norms and access deeper truths. I'm going to say that one again, because y'all might need to hear it again. In many ancient cultures, taboo words were used in ritual settings to break societal norms and access deeper truths. It was a way of stepping outside the box of propriety to connect with something raw and real. Swearing can act like a throat chakra release. Every time you silence yourself because you're afraid of being judged for the words you use, you're blocking energy at your throat. But when you let those words out intentionally, consciously, you unblock that flow. Now, discernment matters here, of course. If you haven't listened to the Power of Discernment episode, I highly recommend. Swearing can be high vibe when it's authentic, when it's an extension of your truth. But it can be a low vibe when it's weaponized, when it's used to harm or demean. So the question is this word expressing my truth? Or is it a way of deflecting from it? That's the difference between empowered swearing and reactive swearing. The policing of language. This one is probably going to be really funny. And I do have some commentary for this part. Let's talk about where all of this comes from. The idea that certain words are off limits. Language has always been policed by institutions, religion, governments, corporations, and yes, even wellness communities. Labeling certain words as dirty often has more to do with control than morality. Suppressing language is a way to keep people small, especially women, queer folks, and marginalized voices. The idea is be nice, be polite, don't be too loud, don't be too direct. I remember a time when someone told me that swearing made me less credible as a teacher. And for a minute, I kind of believed them. But when I realized credibility isn't about whether or not I say the word fuck, it's about whether or not I'm being real. And I decided I'd rather lose the approval of one person who wants me to be quiet than to compromise my own authenticity. It just wasn't worth it to me. But also, I see this a lot in the spiritual community. I have met people who have literally taken back a word that they had said just simply because they consider it a low vibration. And I didn't have the heart to tell them that it's actually the opposite, that they're suppressing their self-expression. But, I also don't believe in controlling or pushing things onto other people. I prefer giving a gentle offering or a different perspective. And I say this one particular phrase way too often. And honestly, I over-explain myself too much to begin with. But I say you can do whatever you want with the information. Right? It has nothing to do with me. You do whatever you want. Choose one or the other. Doesn't matter. As long as you're choosing. And usually with that, it can be more about autonomy and freedom for that person. But in this particular subject, I really feel like society, and again, institutions, religions, the government, lots of corporations, we're actually just sold this whole screwed up idea that we should just never express ourselves. Which is interesting because if you look at the underlying idea of that, the foundation, it's don't be creative, don't think outside the box, don't be an artist. Because truly, artists and creative people, all they do is express themselves. And really that's where, we have for so long, many, many centuries, have, as artists, gotten this idea that we have to suffer for our art. And really, we just need to tell people to fuck off. And that we're the wrong one to deal with and to try things with. That's really what it is. Sometimes it's about putting up boundaries. Sometimes it's about teaching somebody how we want to be treated. Sometimes it's literally to express an emotion, or you're getting across a certain message, right? I say that because the spiritual community, you can go many different ways. I love spirituality. I really do. I'm not hating on the people who are in the community. But what I see a lot, and I would love for people to explore more, is asking themselves, what does this mean for me? Is this a behavior or a habit that feels authentic? Does it feel like I'm expressing my truth? Or maybe it's not. Maybe it feels like it's a betrayal of myself. That's for you to discern. It has nothing to do with anybody else. In fact, I'm a firm believer to question everything I'm told. Absolutely everything. You might consider me, I guess, a spiritual rebel. I have no idea what to call myself other than intuitive creator. But I love this subject because I personally swear often, but I am very selective as to who I do that around. When I teach yoga, I do occasionally swear. And I do it in a way of, showing my students that I am also a human. I am imperfect. I have flaws. And to also be able to relate to them. Right? The other part is like when I first started this podcast, which wasn't that long ago, I also kind of evaluated, okay, well, do I want to literally show up as if I'm having a conversation with a friend? And the answer was, I'm not sure. So I've been evaluating that, and that's the whole reason I'm doing this episode, is because I feel it's really important to talk about and to address the subject itself. I know it's going to sound like, taboo and against the spiritual ideas of things, but really, I don't fucking care. What I care about is expressing myself to my own highest truth. That's what I care about. It has nothing to do with anybody else. And if somebody interprets me as being spiritually sad or depressed or, spiritually lost, or somebody who just seems to think that I am not intelligent, I don't care. You can have whatever opinion you want of me. That doesn't change how I see myself and how I'm going to conduct myself every single day. So swearing as a boundary setter, I love this. Here's the thing about boundaries. Sometimes soft words just don't land. A calm no is beautiful, but sometimes when your safety or dignity is on the line, you need the force of a no. Fucking stop. That intensity cuts through denial. It signals urgency and makes your boundary undeniable. That doesn't make you unkind. That makes you embodied. That makes you powerful. Stop being afraid of your power. If you've never allowed yourself to be fully direct in your tone, I want you to reflect. What would change in your life if you did? What if you allowed yourself to be sharp when sharpness was necessary? How much more clearly would your boundaries be respected? These are all questions that I feel are super important. And it's helpful in the power of discernment and how you move and how you conduct yourself in everyday life. When swearing isn't empowering, though. Now, let's be clear, swearing isn't always empowering. I'm definitely not giving that as advice in this episode. If it's overused, it can lose its impact, like seasoning a dish with too much salt. The flavor disappears in the overwhelm. Ugh. And sometimes swearing in anger or reactivity isn't about expression. It's about avoidance. It can be a way to lash out instead of sitting with your real feelings. So again, ask yourself, am I using this word to emphasize my truth? Or am I using it to avoid my truth? That's the practice of discernment. When you're intentional, swearing becomes a tool. When you're reactive, it becomes noise. So how can we reclaim our words? Here's how we can do that in a sacred way. Start by writing down phrases you've wanted to say but held back because they felt like too much. Then practice saying them out loud, even if it's just in the mirror or in your journal practice. Notice where your body tenses when you say them. That tension, that's where self-censorship lives. It's a sign your body's telling you things. And when you release that tension, you release the shame, the guilt. Here are a few examples of spiritual swearing that I absolutely love. I want to share these with you. I am fucking done with playing small. This is my damn birthright. Hell yes, I claim this. Feel the difference? These words aren't being crude. They're about being alive, awake, and unapologetically here. So here's what I want to leave you with. Swearing doesn't make you less spiritual. It doesn't make you less kind. It doesn't make you less professional. Your power is in your authenticity. And authenticity sometimes has sharp edges. You get to decide what words belong in your vocabulary. And when they come out, nobody has the right to edit your expression for you. Only you can do that. Language is a tool. Use it with intention. Own it without shame. And let it serve your truth, whether your truth whispers or whether it roars. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If this conversation lit a fire in your soul or made you feel seen for your unapologetic self, please share it with a friend who's ready to drop the shame around their self-expression. You can connect with me on Instagram. It's Mandee Rose Artist, Mandee with 2 E's. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss my next episode. Until next time, speak your truth, swear if you fucking want to, and keep reclaiming your voice. You will not be disappointed, my friends. Bye.